Hi there, and congratulations on making it to part 2 of the basics of how to read a lead sheet. If you've made it this far, then you already know how to identify time signatures and understand exactly what a measure is. In this video, we will be covering different rhythmic notes and rest values that we will typically encounter in a lead sheet. Let's take a look. Note values. When we look at a lead sheet, we come across many different looking notes and rests that at a first glance can look like a foreign language. Welcome to the world of music, where we have our own language of rhythms and notation. There are primarily two types of notation on lead sheets. First, let's talk about traditional notation. Traditional notation. This type of notation tells us exactly which note and rhythm to play. You will see this kind of notation used in many genres, and this is seen as the most common type of notation in music. However, in this video, we will be focusing primarily on rhythmic notation. Rhythmic notation. Rhythmic notation focuses solely on telling us the rhythm of the notes and relies on chord symbols to tell you which notes to play. As we talk about rhythmic notation, there are 4 primary rhythmic notes we will come across when we look at a lead sheet. This includes whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. And for now, we'll use a 4/4 time signature on our examples. Let's take a look at each one. First, we have the whole note. The whole note holds a value of 4 beats. One of these notes is long enough to fill out a whole measure in our 4/4 time signature. Here is an example of what a whole note sounds like within a 4/4 time signature.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Next, we have the half note. The half note is exactly what it sounds like and is half the value of the whole note. So if the whole note is worth 4 beats, the half note holds a value of 2 beats. You'll notice this has the circle-like shape of the whole note, although it has a stem on the right side, which makes it a half note. In a 4/4 time signature, you can fit up to 2 half notes in every measure. Here is an example of what half notes sound like within a 4/4 time signature.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Next, we have the quarter note. The quarter note is exactly a quarter of the value of a whole note. So if the whole note is worth 4 beats, the quarter note has a value of 1 beat. In a 4/4 time signature, you could fit up to 4 quarter notes in every measure. Here is an example of what quarter notes sound like within a 4/4 time signature.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
It is also important to note that when you see slashes within a measure on a lead sheet, those slashes typically carry the same value as a quarter note. However, here's the catch. Although they carry the same value as quarter notes, don't play them as quarter notes, because when slashes are written, it's important for you to play your own groove during these measures. In other words, the slashes are just keeping track of the beats and helping you follow along in the music. Next, we have the eighth note. The eighth note is exactly an eighth of the value of the whole note. So if the whole note is worth 4 beats, the eighth note is worth half a beat. It's important to note that eighth notes can look different depending on if they stand by themselves or if they are grouped together in a bunch. Understand that this does not in any way change the value of the eighth note. In a 4/4 time signature, you can fit up to 8 eighth notes in every measure. Here is an example of what an eighth note sounds like within a 4/4 time signature. You will notice in this example that I am playing 2 notes for every beat.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and...
After the eighth note, you can keep dividing by 2 to find the rest of the rhythmic notes we haven't discussed today, including 16th notes, 32nd notes, 64th notes, even 128th notes, although they are rarely ever seen. Lastly, we have the dot. Yes, I know that whilst this may not be a type of rhythmic note, it is used by adding to one of the other rhythmic notes we previously mentioned. When adding the dot, you are simply adding half of the amount of beats to the previous total. Sound confusing? Here are a few examples of how you would see the dot utilized in a lead sheet. Dotted half note. The dotted half note is worth 3 beats. Dotted quarter note. The dotted quarter note is worth a total of 1.5 beats. Dotted eighth note. The dotted eighth note holds a value of 3/4 of a beat. For this video, we'll just have you memorize these values, rather than go into all the math of how we got these numbers. Before we finish up this lesson, it's important to know that for every rhythmic note you encounter, there is an equivalent rest. Rests tell us basically when to be silent. So the same way that we can play a note for 2 beats, we can also rest for 2 beats. Here are the notes we have talked about today, matched up with their rests. As you can see, we have our whole note and whole rest worth a total of 4 beats, our half note and half rest worth a total of 2 beats, our quarter note and quarter rest worth a total of 1 beat, our eighth note and eighth rest worth a total of a half a beat, and our 16th note and 16th rest worth a quarter of a beat. And then as we move to our dotted notes, we have our dotted half note and dotted half rest worth 3 beats, our dotted quarter note and dotted quarter rest worth 1.5 beats, and finally, our dotted eighth note and dotted eighth rest worth 3/4 of a beat. This covers more than 90% of rhythms you will generally encounter in a lead sheet and should provide you with a solid foundation of rhythmic notation. This concludes part 2 of the basics of how to read a lead sheet. Please check out part 3 to continue the series. I look forward to seeing you there.